And speaking of which, you actually had a conversation with Chris about this. What did he have to say?
Oh my gosh. He took my objections and he lit them on fire.
Hold up.
What is up, people? My name is Rahul Bogle. I'm a brand identity designer, and I'm here with the lovely
Melinda Livesey, brand strategist.
And welcome to Studio Grind. If you're new to this channel, we talk about everything from branding and design and all the pain points in between. So today, what are we going to talk about, Melinda?
A rather large pain point, at least for me, were those dang mini blog carousel posts on Instagram. They're driving me nuts. Well, they're not now. I don't know if they're now, but they were.
We don't even know what to call them. So a couple of words to throw out there. Mini guides, mini blogs, carousel posts, I think is technically what it's called. But for all you designers out there, I think you know what we're referring to. We're just going to call it mini guides or mini blogs. The topic of this discussion is mini guides and whether or not you should be doing them. And this is coming from a place where both of us we were kind of stuck whether we should be doing them. We felt like everybody is doing it, and we don't want to be those designers that are just jumping on the bandwagon. And we were putting our own roadblocks for this.
Yeah, I put a lot of roadblocks. Well, the first thing that got me when I saw them is like, oh, these are so good. And then I started seeing them over and over, and different people were doing them, and some were doing them really, really well, others not so much. And so there was that span of, people that were the spectrum, right? Some are doing really well, some are not. So then I started seeing it so much that people were starting to talk about it, and then it became a trend. So if you don't do them, like, what is this weird random post that's an image and it's not an infographic or an info blog or mini guide? Like, it became weird to not do it. And then part of me was like, well, I don't want to just do it because I'm jumping on the bandwagon because it's trendy and I'm a designer. So I better figure out a different way that is more attention grabbing or something. Like, I put that pressure on myself that I should be creating different posts than the mini guides to get attention away from the mini guides. I don't know.
Yeah, that was
just to get it to happen.
My first thought was like, okay, this is kind of cool. And I first saw it on Chris's page. And then I just started seeing like a ripple effect. Now it's like everywhere. My feed is just completely bombarded with these guides. And I noticed myself actually clicking and swiping through them because I'm just curious. I never really thought that what was really happening. Why was I engaging with it? Never took the time out to reflect. And then slowly it's like, oh, I could do one. And I was patient. And then same thought, okay, I'll do one, but I'm going to do it differently. And I had no idea what that differently was going to be and just kept putting it off. I was like, no, now everybody's doing this. Why am I going to be just another person doing this? So let's talk about what we learned from stopping ourselves from not doing it.
Yeah, well, a lot of the perfectionism came up for me. So looking at people like Christo, I mean, he's slaying. Like, he is doing so well, in my opinion, and I'm probably super biased. But anyway, it's besides the point. I think he's doing really well. Michael Jand is doing really well.
Yeah.
And I feel like those two are the ones leading the charge on everything. Everyone else, there's some good ones popping up here and there, but I feel like those two are just blowing it out of the water.
Yeah. So
my struggles were, why should I contribute to more noise, more things that people are consuming, more things that people are reading and interrupting them to give them more content that, are they really going to implement it? So why am I doing this? I don't want to create, the thing that we had talked about too is creating junk food. So like, why should I create more things that I feel like might just be junk food to people that, yeah, they'll save it, but is it really doing anything of value for them? And so I thought that, gosh, there were so many things like, well, thinking of how the two people, Michael Jan and Christo, are doing such a good job at it, I thought, well, I can't measure up to that. Like my posts aren't going to be that good. So why should I even try? And why should, like, if they're going to, people can go to those two accounts, why should I even put mine out there at all? So those are the things stopping me.
A bunch of limiting beliefs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I thought at one point, I thought that even if I put it out there, who's going to really care? Why would somebody look at my mini blog posts and my opinion when someone like Chris or Michael is doing this already? And then oftentimes I'd be like, okay, even forget all of that. Let me just share a thought. And then before I can get to that thought, somebody else has already done it. And so now it's like, do I feel like a parrot?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the thing that started getting me, well, can we go to how we had the mindset shift? Because we both were totally in agreement with each other. Yeah. We're like confirming each other's limiting beliefs and like, yeah, we shouldn't do it. And we spent a lot of time convincing ourselves not to do it.
Way too much time.
Just trying it. And then letting the results prove us right or wrong. Like we just made so many assumptions before even trying it that we're like, we're not going to do it. But think of if we took all the time that we talked about it and we actually made posts.
Yeah.
Like, it frustrates me thinking about that. It's like, dang it. All that mental energy I spent to confirm why I shouldn't do something. I should have just been doing it and then testing and seeing if my assumptions were correct, like a hypothesis, like try it out. If the audience doesn't respond, do something else.
Yeah. And then a thought also came as like, okay, what do I want to be known for?
Well, this is an interesting conversation because, and for those of you who don't follow Rahul, you should, number one. But number two, if you go back to his previous post, you're going to notice something interesting that he was posting, not that it's a bad thing, but photography. And what happened with that, Rahul? Would you like to share?
Yeah, so I was pretty much masking myself. I was just taking the easy route out by using photography as a plug and play for content creation. And how I convinced myself, and the story I told everybody is, oh, this is a way that I'd like to creatively explore outside of design. Yes and no. The BS part of it, like I mentioned, is it was an easy plug and play route, and I still hadn't figured out how I wanted to position myself. So the moment I got clarity, obviously through talking with you and just having multiple conversations of talking myself out of it, like not doing this, not changing my mindset and my positioning, was like, forget it. Let's just do it. And I started out with, I'm not too sure, I can't remember what posted. I think it was Good Designers. And the timing was perfect because there was a documentary coming out on Dieter the next day. And I just told myself, this is something, a person I relate to. I completely believe in his philosophy. And it's relevant because I can post it and then direct people to an action, which is a documentary that's coming tomorrow. So I had to force myself that if I miss this boat this time, then like game over, forget it. I'm going to go and lock myself in my room for the rest of my life.
Or you could become a photographer.
Yeah. I can become a photographer because yes, that's another thing that was happening is yes, even though I was using photography as another outlet, as a creative expression, what was happening is people started to know me for photography. And I saw this, but again, I was ignoring it. I was lying to myself. I'm like, no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I can find a way to lead them into design. But no, people were like, hey, do you do headshots? Do you do this? And at one point I was second guessing myself where I was like, do I do headshots? Maybe I want to do some headshots. This would be kind of fun. No, it wasn't. So the shift that happened the moment I put this out there was one, immediate engagement, and attracted a whole bunch of people, new people, designers, more creative people. And this was good for me because for the past 2 months prior to that, I was at a complete I was standstill with my account. It was not growing. It kept dropping, in fact. And I was just like, this makes no sense. So the moment I did this alongside with the mini blogs, it kind of blew up. I think within that day, I gained like 50 new followers or something like that. And I've got a bunch of bookmarks on that one post. And it got me really excited because when I was doing that, I actually started thinking about the next couple of things I wanted to talk about. And yeah, so the next two posts were very similar in styles as far as mini blog posts, and the engagement has been great, both on Facebook and on Instagram. I've actually taken two of those and put it on LinkedIn, which has been really, really good as well. The amount of views I got on it has been great. And more people were starting to talk to me about design, which excites me. So yeah, that's like instant validation that this is, and this isn't like something you do just for followers, but it's like, what do you want to be talking about and what do you want to be seen as? And I know you had
want to be known
for a good response too. Like you had an incredible response to yours.
Yeah, and yeah, going back to what you're saying, like what you put out there is what you're going to be known for. So you used to put out photography.
Yeah.
You trying to get known for photography and hit up for stuff like headshots that made you even question what you were doing with your life and your career. So that's pretty big. So now, and what we had talked about is put out content of things that you want to be known for. And so this, it sounds like, is positioning you more as a designer, what you want to be known for. That's good. But yeah, the one that I started off with a mini one that was just a little exercise in finding your creative personality, your creative voice, and like what that was, and personality plus passion. And I got some shares on that and some people talking about it. And I now realize too, if people don't go in depth with your content, the fact that you keep showing up in their feed is reinforcing the fact that you're trustworthy. Like that is reinforcing trust. And so the second post I did was a longer carousel one, and I'm treating it more because I am over designing, really. I mean, art directing I'll do, but like sitting down and designing something, I'm just over it. And so I was getting really nervous to design my own. So I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, this is not how I think. Like I am much more at this moment in my life, more conversational, more thinking, like, yes, I think visually, but I just don't distill it in the ways that other people do at this time in my life and what I want to say and what I want to get out. And so I'm treating them more like a conversation. So as you're flipping through the carousel, it's like you're reading my newsletter. So if you are on my newsletter, if you've subscribed or read anything that I've written, I've got a lot of responses back of people saying, it feels like you're talking to me. It feels like we're having a conversation. And so I thought, well, if that's what people are knowing me for, and I like that, then how can I bring what I'm already doing somewhere else into those posts so it has my creative voice in it versus just trying to do like those awesome infographics that I'm seeing with Michael Janda. Like he does really good infographics. Yeah. I'm like, gosh, that's so good. But like my brain I just don't want to do it. Like I personally don't want to make those. I find them very valuable though. But I thought, well, what makes me unique? How does what I do differ from everyone else? And then how can I use that in my post? And so from doing that, like I was like, dang it, there weren't a ton of likes. You know, I'm all looking at gauging that.
Yeah.
But there were 4 to 5 times as many bookmarks. Like I usually get 100 to 200 bookmarks if it's like a very, meaty post.
Yeah.
But that was almost 800 last time I checked. And that's like a ton for me. So I'm seeing that the people that are saving it, it's so much more than just random likes, which is worth more, right?
Of course, it shows that they want to come back to it.
And good questions too. Like I'm getting people that are asking questions, and I'm also seeing that they're making, and not that it's a bad thing, but they're making assumptions based off of what I was telling them in the post. And I didn't realize that's how it came across until I read their question. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need to address this, or maybe in my next post, I can address what they're asking or phrase something a little different. So it's helping me refine my own thoughts and my own
Mhm.
communication, but I would have never gotten there if I didn't actually post it.
Yeah. And one of my personal, I'd say, pain points. No, okay, I won't say pain points. One of the reasons I didn't do it as well, like you mentioned about Michael Janda's posts, how overwhelming, but how great they are. Like I just kept looking at his posts and like, man, I want to do an illustration like this. Now I have to like I just kept putting my own resistance in there. Whereas like I don't need to do this. And the initial, I don't know if you remember when I was initially designing my two posts and the two different types of posts there were, one that was a little bit more informative, but one that was in the form of a quote. Because I had to go back. This was a good reflection for me because I started to look at what my core beliefs are, and one of them being simplicity. And I want to talk about this. We're going to talk about this in our next video, our own personal manifestos and how that's shaped up. I think that's a good conversation to have. But coming back to the point was the reflection of what are my core beliefs, and one of them being simplicity. How do I break down valuable information in the simplest form? And I had one that was in the form of longer posts and one that was just two posts that were just very, very short. And I thought that people would resonate more with the longer post because that's what I see a lot of versus the shorter one. And you said, just do it, just put it out there and, iterate from there. And I actually got a lot more engagement from the very simple short form.
Well, and isn't it the designer's dilemma to want to add, to over design and
Yeah.
want to add too much and to think that we should? And instead, we're focusing on like this, making it so complex
Yeah.
when really it's about cutting out all of the things that are distracting from the core message and the core focus. And I struggle with that all the time of like thinking things need to be long or over illustrated or infographic style when really I can literally just post like a conversation in
Yeah.
in the carousel. So I think it's, the journey of a designer, how to cut
And I
all.
think what's important to look back at is, let's just say I, mimicked your style where I had a longer conversation in my posts. It might not necessarily work for me because people know you
Mhm.
in a form of a person that has a conversation through your newsletters, through all of your content. So you got to look at what's appropriate to you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think just like we can't be Christo. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can't, even though I'm trying to copy him in a lot of stuff because he's my mentor, but I can't, nor should I even want to copy what he's doing because he has a certain way of communicating. He has a certain design style and he's known for that in his keynotes.
Yeah.
So he's just reflecting what he's already doing somewhere else into those posts. And I would assume it's the same with Michael Janda too. I haven't read his book yet, but I'm assuming that his book is probably very similar. I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious to look into it and see. But like Michael Janda, he has a completely different personality and
Yeah.
voice, and like we can't. And so I want to encourage anyone that is thinking about, whatever content you're trying to create, that jumping on the trend of creating a mini guide or a carousel doesn't mean you have to copy anybody. Like that's just a mode. Like that's just something like a blog or gosh, writing a book. Like it's just a medium and it's a mode of communicating, but it doesn't mean that you have to copy what other people are doing. You can still have your creative voice in it. So if you illustrate, make it all with illustrations. If you write, then just post your ratings. If you have communication and conversations like I do, then you can do that. Like whatever it is that you do and is natural for you and what you've already done in other places,
Mm-hmm.
then just transfer that into whatever content you're making online.
And even if you just change your perspective on whether are you actually copying or are you being inspired, if you just change your frame of mind on that, I think it will make a huge difference because by me thinking I'd be copying somebody created a lot of resistance. The moment I thought that this is inspiring, I need to do my own, it felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders. And speaking of which, you actually had a conversation with Chris about this. What did he have to say?
Oh my gosh. He took my objections and he lit them on fire and then watched as they burned in front of us both. So I brought up, because he's always, there's a time for the question asking and getting me to think about things. And then there's a time where he just goes, you need to do this and don't question me. Mm-hmm. So, and when he says that, like, I got to take it seriously because he's usually right. I haven't come across the time where
he's going to love this. He knows.
Don't tell me this. So yeah, I told him all my objections, all of those, the perfectionism. One of them that he immediately got drawn to was when I think I had said competition. So I was like, well, I don't want to be competing or feel like I'm competing. And he immediately says, there's enough to go around. Like that, he just called out my scarcity mindset, like right there. Because I was like, well, I don't want to compete for attention. And isn't that what we're just doing? Because if we're all doing these carousels, then which one is going to get the attention of people? And he was saying, like, there's an audience for everyone. And that we don't have to be stealing one audience away from another, that there's enough to go around. So like, that was one of the things that he immediately went into. And I was like, I can't use that one. So then I had to go to all the others, like, well, I don't want to design it. And so he goes, this is for yourself. Like, you're not creating this for a client. You're not having to do this for anything. Like, you're designing for yourself what you want to communicate. And so why wouldn't you want to do this?
Yep. And like
I struggled a little bit too still, but what were you saying?
The whole thought of competition with, like, this comes back to what Blair Enns is saying about being an expert. If you're an expert in what you're doing, it doesn't matter how you're doing it. You're not competing because it's your voice, right? It might just be in that sense, like, the first time somebody started using SEO and said, hey, SEO is really working for me. And then everybody else said, hey, SEO is a trend. I shouldn't use it. They're using it because it works. And that was the hardest thing for me. Like, the moment I realized that, I was just like, hey, it's the same thing. Mini blogs is a form of engaging and building awareness, and it works. So do it.
Yeah. Well, and I had said that too, very similar to Chris. And he said the Jim Rohn quote, success leaves clues. So he said, why, if just like backing up what you just said, if you know it works, why aren't you doing it? Yep. And so then there was that. Those were the main things I believe that we went through. And at the end of it, he was like, you just need to do it and trust me on this. And it's because he does this thing where it's like, if I tell you to do something, just don't question and just do it. Just trust me on it. And I fight it a little bit. It might take me like a couple weeks to actually do it, but then I do it. And then I realize that he's right. And then I move on with my life and grow. And so I realized that if he said that, like, okay, I'll do it. Like, I will do it. And I'm glad I did. But one of the realizations that I had, it was while you were talking about that too, was that, what did he say too? Oh, I think he mentioned too about, like, you have your own voice, what we had talked about previously. You have your own voice in how you communicate. Oh, and this was the other one. And you had mentioned it too about your unique positioning, and you have a unique voice. You have, no one can say things the way you, me, everyone, but you can. So there was someone that posted in the pro group, Futur pro group, and it's talking about positioning. And they said, what if you changed your positioning instead of saying you are an brand strategist or a brand strategist or a brand identity designer, that you change the sentence to the. So the brand strategist, that doesn't really work. So you have to change those specific words to make it so that you are the only person. And I thought about it and I was like, well, who am I? I'm having this like crisis, identity crisis. And then I thought, I'm the future's case study. So, okay, if I'm like the Kelly Clarkson of the future, right? I'm like the first one which I'm so happy about, but I need to leverage the story that I'm given, that only I'm given. Like nobody else can say that they're Melinda from the future. Nobody else can say that they're Christo from the future. So what does that mean? Like, I love that, like using the. for your positioning. So knowing that and thinking about that, like what stories can I tell? So only Melinda from the future, only Melinda being the future's first case study, what stories can I tell? And those are the stories of my own transformation of what I've learned on this journey. And once I realized that, I'm like, oh, I do have a unique perspective that I can share. And I can use this medium and this mode of communicating to share that with people, whether they know me or not.
And if you look at the way the onlyness statement is structured, and for those that don't know what that is, I'll put that on the screen right now. The onlyness statement starts with the only, and that's used for many companies to help them with their positioning. So it makes total sense. And I think the first time I don't know where I saw it. I think you shared it on a Slack or somewhere. And I'm like, damn, like, how do I even change what I am into the whatever, like the designer? It just sounds stupid. So that's something for me to think about. I still haven't had time to reflect on it. But I think that's a good exercise for anybody that's watching this. If you're struggling with your positioning, maybe just start off with that. Change what you are saying. Replace the word a designer with or a whatever to the, and see what happens with it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's that would be a really good exercise, especially if you're struggling, with posting and all that. You said about changing the labels. One other thing that Chris did mention was, I said, I don't want to just hop on the trendy train. Like, I want to do stuff that's trendy. And he's like, why do we have to label it like that? Why do we have to label it trendy? And he always does this. And I'm thankful for it because it calls out the labels that I put on things. And he was just questioning, like, why do we have to call it trendy? Why can't we call it valuable? Why can't we put a different label on it? And then kind of like what Errol said in the podcast on the future, he said, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Oh,
the labels are huge. So if you change the label, just like moving A to the in your positioning statement, it changes everything. So it makes it going from you're in a pool of people using A or A, and then changing it to the is making it very singular on just you and what makes you unique. Yep. So labels matter and words matter. And
talking about that podcast, whoever hasn't seen it needs to watch it. That word or that sentence or phrase has been like my mantra for ever since I watched that or listened to that podcast. It blows me away.
We'll put it in the description below.
Yeah. Way if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Is that it? That's the one, right?
Yeah. So that's what happened with our carousel. So we were looking at it differently.
Yeah.
It's actually working for us. I'm looking at it as a way to communicate with my followers. It's a way to give them value, maybe of something that they haven't yet thought of or they haven't read, because I'm repurposing my old writings or writings I just sent out in my newsletter. I'm repurposing those things to try it out on Instagram. So it's a lot for people that maybe they aren't subscribed yet or they don't follow along. But I'm trying to give value, but also help open up this conversation and help people get to know me too in the way that I talk, so that I'm not trying to talk or communicate in a way that is foreign to me, because then they're not going to know truly who I am. So you have to find your own voice.
Cool. Yeah. So this is good. So if we were to summarize this conversation, we had limiting beliefs, which were, I'll let you recap your limiting beliefs, Melinda.
Limiting beliefs that what I create, if we're talking about mini carousel blog guides on Instagram, that mine aren't good enough, that it's too trendy. I don't want to hop on a train. I don't want to compete with anyone. I don't want to just put out more information for people to consume and not actually implement and take action on. So those were main things.
And then what were the outcomes? What were your realizations?
Outcomes
results?
Realizations I would say first would be that we can, if we think, how do I want to say this? labels matter. That if we label something negative, is that really helping us? So in my case, I was labeling these things as trendy, and I could have changed my view, in which I have now, to they're valuable. And so that was a realization. Another one was that we're not competing. There's enough to go around. Another one is that no one has my perspective in the way I communicate, the way I say things. No one is me, so they can't do exactly what I do, and so I don't have to copy anyone. I can just be me and communicate how I want, and I can use carousels as a mode, a medium, a vehicle to communicate in a way that people are actually responding to.
Yep.
Excuse me. And then results. A ton more bookmarks, a ton more saves, a lot of engagement, questions being asked, feedback, and that is going to help me communicate what I need to in the long run, and to also be seen and positioning myself as the brand strategist, the case study from the future. Really, I'm trying to position myself in a certain way now and be seen as a brand strategist who wants to help other people be brand strategists. So it's helped in my positioning with that.
That's awesome. Okay, so I'll go. My limiting beliefs were, I don't want to do it. Who cares? Who's really going to care about what I have to say? How do I make this different? Or, why do I need to make this different? Am I going to be a person that's copying somebody else? Like you mentioned, am I just jumping on the trendy train? So it was just my limiting beliefs or my perspective on the whole thing. The realizations were, I think the quote sums it up. If I change the way I look at things, the things that I look at change. And that podcast really helped, because I think I was listening to that podcast in the middle of designing the first post. So everything he was saying was just reaffirming. So the realization was, it doesn't really matter what somebody else has to think. Why are you doing this? And what do you have to share? And is it important enough for you to share? So that was a realization for me. I think another realization was just also the aspect of repositioning myself. I was struggling with that. And it became clear that I need to do this. If I've talked about failure and success in the past and just making mistakes, this was time for me to put it in action myself. So that was a huge realization, because it now makes it easier for me to actually build case studies on mistakes. The results have been great. The results has been great, particularly in the repositioning aspect of it. People now see me more as a designer. I've connected with a lot more people that I actually look up to, and connected with a lot more designers. There's a lot more internal excitement. I can't wait to put out the next post. I've been having a busy week, and that made me also realize that I need to pump out more or create more when I'm in that mode. Just do 6 or 7 of them. And yeah, bookmarks, likes, shares, people got excited. Outside of the mini blogs, the design related post that I did to reposition myself led to some leads. So that was a good outcome.
That's huge.
That's huge.
I think designers need to hear that more.
Yeah.
How do you get leads? Put
Yeah.
out good content. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That aligns with what you do.
Yeah, because even with photography, I wasn't adding any value. I was just sharing photos. I just didn't realize that your, personal brand is so crucial. And I've talked about this. I preach it. I tell clients about it. I just didn't implement it with myself. I think a lot of creatives do that. They're so focused on others and possibly a brand, but they don't realize they themselves are the brand, and they need to live, breathe, and eat it. That's it.
Agreed. On that note,
Go
create your carousel post.
Do that. And the next time you come and watch, I'll tell you about how I lost $60,000 worth of leads. Yeah. Oh my god! And this is why that lead the leads that came in were like. All right, let's wrap it up. Thank you for watching. I hope this video is valuable for you guys. We'll leave links in the comment section below for Chris, Michael Janda, and some other creators that I think are doing it really well with the mini blogs. Feel free to leave a link to your Instagram handle if you guys have been sharing mini blogs on your Instagram account in the comment section below, and we'd love to check it out and share. Melinda?
Like, subscribe, and hit the bell.
Ding! See you next. I like that.
Hey, when you're editing too, can you do that like, in editing where they go bink and it turns black and there's just like it's like a cut.
Yeah.
And then we redo? Like we need to do that. I think that's funny.
Okay. Well, we're going to redo this.
Like we redo it. And then
we're going to redo this anyways.
So it's just like flash black, and it makes that one like sound. You know what I'm talking about?
Like boop.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we like redo it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.